Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our weekly live Q&A. Tonight, we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Kay and Rex Hocking from Washpool Working Kelpies.
Kay and Rex will be picking who they think have asked the best question of the night, and they'll win a bag of Enduro high-energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat.
Hey, how are you guys going?
Hello there.
We're going along very well.
So,
Thank you for giving us some of your time this evening.
That's not a problem. We don't mind talking dogs and talking to dog people and spreading our knowledge and listening to other people's knowledge as well.
And Kay, commiserations for having to sit next to Rex for an additional hour of the evening as well. Appreciate your commitment to us.
I don't mind sitting next to Rex for an hour at all. I think it's Rex not too sure about having to have me as close to him for an hour.
He got a bit cheeky there before, so I thought I'd just swing it back the other way for you.
Yeah, well, 9 hours this close together a day. I don't know whether it's going to be good or bad, but I'll let you know next time.
I think he really loves it.
Of course,
I think he does.
He's playing hard to get.
We've been married for 58 years, so if he hasn't liked it for all of that time, too bad.
And that wasn't that long ago, your anniversary, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, about a fortnight ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's an unreal feat in itself.
Yeah.
August the 31st, if anybody wants to put in their calendars to remember us next time around.
Excuse me. What month?
July.
We're in August yet. It's not August 30th yet.
That's a great way to start the night, Rex.
So
That's why I'm here, you see. I'm the PA and the administrator and the reminder. So I need to be here to remind him to get things right.
so where's home, guys?
Avenue Range, right down the bottom of the southeast South Australia. We're 150 kilometres north of Mount Gambier and 350 kilometres southeast of Adelaide. And we're only about 60 kilometres from the Victorian border.
Lovely spot of the world, I bet.
It is a great place. Yes, it's nice and quiet down here, and it's a great country, great area, very, very flat. And we do get very wet and cold, but that's just part of it. But yeah, we're very flat, wet country.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still managing and running your own place?
No, that's not quite right. No, my daughter, eldest daughter, runs the property with her husband Nick, and I'm just a jackaroo. I start at 7:30 in the morning and knock off at 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Semi-retired.
Oh,
no, I do a fair bit of the feeding out and shifting sheep and so forth. I bring them into the yards, then I meet the sheep around the other side of the yards and take them away. That's my main job and so forth. And I love doing it. It's not work; it's just an enjoyment.
And still a bit of stock on the property there. You mentioned a bit earlier.
Yes. We run quite all sheep. And that no cattle at all, but all sheep and breeding merinos and first cross lambs.
And still some decent numbers.
What was it?
Numbers.
And like earlier talking about your flock size there was still some decent numbers there.
Yes. No, we've got approximately 9,000 sheep at present and so forth. With that's ewes and lambs and other sheep as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the name of your stud, you want to tell us how that come about?
Well, the name of the property is called the Washpool, and we've just got Washpool Kelpies. But why it was called originally it was called the Wool Wash, and they used to wash the wool here from when they were blade shearing at the Cairn Bank shearing shed, which is only about a couple of kilometres away. And they had dug a hole here and laid flat stones out. They shore the wool during the week and then came over at the weekend and threw it all in the hole. and they used to hop in there and get it out and lay it on the stones and dry it out, and then roll it up with twine and put it on the and cart it down to Kingston, where there was a port down there, and it used to be loaded onto a boat and sent to England.
So there's a fair bit of family history there on your property.
Yes, we've been here for a long time. We're the sixth generation, and the other part of our family is they bought property out 14 kilometres south of here, 14 miles south of here at Comara, and they're still farming out there as well. So, yeah, all our family is still around here, which is a great thing, and we all still get on extremely well together.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And you mentioned they're 58 years married there, Kay.
Yeah.
58 years. So 60 years ago, where do you guys meet? Were you both local?
Well, I'm a Queenslander, actually. So
we won't
I come,
hold that against you.
I come from Queensland. Yes, I follow the Maroons when we're doing the state of origin, much to Gary White's disgust. But I travelled around Queensland. My father was an engineer. I did live out in a little town called Barcaldine, and then moved to Townsville. And for my secondary schooling, we went back to Brisbane, and then I became a nurse. So I was a nurse. I've never been on a farm. I've been on a farm, but never had anything much to do with it. But interestingly enough, Rex and I have mutual cousins, and we came down, my mother and I, to visit them, and I met Rex. And the funny story about that was that he asked me to go out with him, and I was a classically trained singer, and he asked me if I'd like to go to a concert. And I thought, oh, how interesting. He's interested in music. And we ended up going to see Slim Dusty. Never been to or had anything to do with country and western, but it was an eye-opener. And we wrote to each other for 4 years before we were married.
Wow.
Wow.
So then it was a real eye-opener for me to come down here. The language was even different. Yeah. And so Rex had to teach me a lot of things, and I ended up not liking being inside. So I spent most of my time outside with Rex learning, and his father was a great encourager, and his grandfather as well. And they had no qualms about teaching me as much as I wanted to know. Oh, so I ended up doing the wool classes course to class our wool, and also I learned about the horses, even learnt to milk a cow, not very well, but I would get one teat quarter emptied, and Rex would have the other 3 finished, and still had to spit inside. So, but it's a help. Every little bit helps, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the younger people out there that don't know about writing letters for 4 years, that's what people used to do before we had phones and iPads. You actually had to write things on letters to get them to people. That's a lot of dedication, right? So like that wasn't in communication constantly either, right? You'd have to wait, like pen pally.
Yes, that's right. And it would go to the hospital, and Rex's letters would come to the hospital, and it would be put up in my pigeonhole, and all the nurses would rush down after the postman been to see if there'd been a letter for them. We used to have about once a fortnight, wasn't it? You'd ring. They only had the phone on from what?
Party line.
Yeah, so it was only able to talk on the phone, every so often and for a short period of time. And I would come down during my holidays and spend time with Rex. And I'd have a week off between night duty and day duty and come down. He would pick me up in Melbourne. I'd fly to Melbourne. He'd pick me up in Melbourne. And then Rex would, he would drive up to Brisbane twice a year.
1,428 miles from door to door.
Commitment, my friend.
In a little white Simca. 4 speed, 20 exhaust.
So, Rex, obviously the farm has got a lot of history within your family. Did you ever venture off the farm, mate?
Yes, I did during the farm here, right, and we had a very severe drought in 1967, and money was very scarce, and we trapped rabbits and saved money, put money under the mattress. Didn't put it in the bank. Didn't trust banks in those days. Put it under the pillow, under the mattress, and then when it got too lumpy, you used to go for a holiday, on that. So, but it was great times. What was the question?
No.
I've lost my train of thought.
Did you do anything else?
Oh yes, do anything else. Yes, we had the severe drought, and the local post office fella had a couple of paces. And I used to go over and help him a bit. And then there was a racehorse trainer out the road, and he wanted a little person to ride his racehorse, and I used to do that. And I got involved with horses. And fortunately, I had a very good run with horses, and we had a couple of good ones, and took them over to Victoria. Won quite a few races over there. And in 1970, we bought a 5 acres on the edge of Ballarat, near the Bray Raceway, and I professionally trained horses over Victoria for 10 years, from 1970 to 1980. That was great times, great memories. And end of 1980, the next door neighbour's property came up here for sale, and Dad said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd love to sell out in Ballarat." And I didn't even advertise the place in Ballarat. A fella came round and was interested and so forth, and he said, "I'll buy your place." And 2 days later, he bought a suitcase cash round, and that's so we sold Ballarat and moved back to the farm. So
did he? I didn't see that money.
So I did spend a fair bit of time off the farm for that 10 years. Dad run the farm and had a workman and that, and we expanded the farm, and so I did have time away at the farm, which was very good, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And one of our daughters was born in Ballarat. So no, both our daughters were born in Ballarat.
No, one was born here.
Oh, gee, don't get old. But anyhow, no, I have spent time off the farm. Now came back in the 80s, was full-time farmer, and bought another property, and that went a bit bad with the wool crash and high interest rates and so forth, but we still retained our main property, and we've bought a couple other blocks since.
So when you say racehorses, do you mean like paces, or race, like get on and ride racehorse?
Gallopers.
No, harness
horses.
Horses, yes,
Harness,
yeah.
yeah.
And that. And if you want me to expand a little bit on that, I was very fortunate. I had some good horses. Took a horse to Queensland and won the first Clive Ure Championship up there with a horse called Para Chief. Won a Miracle Mile in Sydney with a horse called Reichman. And that's in record time. Fastest ever pacer in Australia. He was for many years. And won big races at the showgrounds in Melbourne. Still hold a Guinness Book record for the fastest horse on a 3 furlong track. That still stands at this day and will forever, because I don't race on 3 furlong tracks anymore. But I was very fortunate with the horses. I had good owners. Well, they were mainly our own horses when we started off, and then a couple of people, a couple of owners, wanted to buy me a couple of young horses and that, and we got them going very well, and then sold them to America, and that was all a great time. It wasn't actually hard work, but very long hours and so forth. You get home at 11 at midnight, be up at daybreak and that, but that was just part of it, and just done it and that. So yeah, plenty of your Maltese friends were in the game at that stage.
They had pillowcases full of lumpy pillowcases as well, mate.
No, well, I didn't. I was never a betting man. I put $1 in a poker machine once, Wentworth, and that I'm not a betting man. And if you're involved with the industry, you just wonder, people betting on horses, because there's so many things can go wrong and can go right. A bit like betting on yard dog trials. There's so many fences that can go wrong. But no, like won a lot of stake money. It was good, and but my dad and uncles, they always liked to have a bit of a punt, and they done pretty well out of it. And that, so, but it was all good fun.
When did dogs come into your life then?
Always.
Yeah, we always had dogs, and that my granddad he had collies, long-haired collies, nice collies, and that. But he never ever worked. It was a bit strange, and never ever worked in the yards. They always got the sheep in with them, and then they always used to be enough jackaroos and people around to work them through the yards and that. But I've always I started off with a tricolor border collie. Border cross when I was left school. Granddad gave me a pup, and and he gave me a pup horse and a saddle. And strange enough, I've still have my first saddle that I've got. And we had a big bushfire go through here 3 years ago, cleaned us out, but our houses were saved, and I still have my saddle, but no harness racing paraphernalia left at all, and that. But it was. But getting back to the dogs, I've always had handy dogs, handy farm dogs, and that. And then when we came back in 1980, and bought the other property, we were running a lot of sheep, and we needed handy dogs. And I just had a couple of station bred dogs. They were okay, and that. And then the first dog registered dog I bought was Emma Kate. No, not Emma Kate.
Scandon Francis.
Oh, Scandon Francis. That's right. True. Yeah, and that's from Jens Pedersen. A little red Kelpie bitch, and she was a very handy dog. And then I bought a dog from Andrew King. So he was over this way then, and she was called Kingsley Emma Kate. And we went on from there, and just buying a bit better bred dogs, and breeding dogs, but the dogs that we bought and bred have always been very good dogs. I'm not sure whether it was the breeding or the way I brought them up and that, but no, always been involved with dogs.
Beautiful.
And so I was taught to work the dogs as well, so that was good. And because when we first came back in 1980, toward the end of 1980, when things were going tough, we were the only ones working. So I had to quickly learn to be able to muster and shift stock around and put them through the yards and so on. So I grew up. I mean, I love dogs anyway. I just had pet dogs as a young girl, but we worked together. We were very lucky in that the dogs that we bought, and at that stage we were only having bitches. We didn't have any male dogs at all. And the first male dog we had, nobody wanted to buy him from the litter because he wasn't the most attractive dog. And we took him, and we had him desexed, and he won numerous open trials, and people would say, could we use him as a stud? And Rex said, yes, if you could find his balls.
How when you started working through the yards and that was different to what your family had done, did you have any pushback working dogs in the yards from your family?
What was the question? The pushback?
No, sorry, we didn't quite get that
question.
Because you mentioned before that previously, in your family, they were using collies for outside, and your jackaroos were pushing the sheep through the yards. When you guys went and got your kelpies and started using them in the yards yourself, was there a bit of pushback from your family, or going like, "What? We don't need the dogs in the yard. We can do it ourselves"?
There was, yes, you're right there. Yes, it was quite a bit of that, but over the time they could see, you have 1 or 2 dogs in the yard, you didn't need anybody else there, and that. So, well, things changed then, but even nowadays, we only, if a person in the yards with his dogs, we don't have other people's other handlers' dogs there. One person with his dogs in the yard at a time. When they get tired, swap over. Working dogs in the yards, that was a big changer, and you could say more efficient, and that but was a big change, and was just for the better.
Have you guys found your daughter and her husband trying to implementing things that you guys sort of go, oh, why would you do it that way?
I didn't get that question either. What was the question again, Laura?
Have you guys, how your dad didn't like you bringing dogs in to the yards? Has your daughter and her husband done anything that you guys are a bit iffy about?
They've made changes, but they've been all for the betterment and that. But my daughter, both my daughters, they were very good dog handlers and good stock people. That was we've been very fortunate to have daughters and people like that with good stock sense, and even our grandchildren, they've got magnificent stock sense, and it makes working dogs a lot easier and working the stock. And you get the stock trained a lot better, and the stock want to move or go through, places that they normally would resist because they haven't got the pressure on them.
Yeah, our daughters were highly educated young women, and they finished their education and went away from the property for quite some time doing their things. And our daughter that runs the property with her husband, they're both research scientists, and our youngest daughter is involved with administration with the industry, but she and her husband have their own property just out the other side of Lucerdale from where we are. And but our grandchildren, all 4 of them have been very good on the property. The 3 eldest ones have all had their own dogs and trialled and won. The youngest one is into motorbikes, so he doesn't work any dogs at all. He's involved with the motorbike, so he's still at school, so at boarding school. So he comes home and spends his time following Rex around, but riding his motorbike. So he's not into dogs, unfortunately, but he may as he gets a bit older. So yeah, but we're very proud about our grandchildren, and they're very close to us, and they've been wonderful, those 4 children with us when we've had pups, because they have socialised those puppies. So the puppies get to know people. Right, they would come and watch the pups born, because I would be the midwife, and they'd come and watch the puppies being born. And as soon as they were a few days old, they'll be over patting them, holding them, and getting the bit used to these pups being held and not being upset about it all. And as soon as they started moving around, well, these pups were out on the lawn, and so they were so used to. Our dogs are so well socialised because of these little kids playing with them. But they were taught to play in the right way. So there was no squeezing them or holding them by the head or anything like that. It was always the right way. And even now, they come home and with the little pup that you saw this afternoon, they've got to go and see Geordie, see what he's doing. And so he enjoys that, and they do as well. But we have other dogs as well. We have Maremas. So we have the sheep minding Maremas.
Like the Guardians. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a pup as well. Or she's
Marama pup.
a Marama pup. Yes,
So-
and the old bitch is getting a bit old now to do much, but she's been the most wonderful, wonderful dog to watch as she works. And the Kelpies, she gets in the way at times, so she'd be sitting in a gateway, stopping the sheep from going through, of course. And the Kelpies, you could see them thinking, what are we going to do? And they'd just jump over the top of her and push the sheep through. And she'd say, oh, you really want to go through the gate? Righto. So off she'd go and the sheep would follow. So this little pup, the one that we're just educating at the moment, is doing much the same. But the young one has to learn and meet the Kelpies, because otherwise she will, get a bit aggressive with them. And she wasn't too keen on our little puppy, but Rex up along and made them, and they're friends now. So there's certain other things that, the other breeds of dogs that we've got to deal with in a different way.
Absolutely.
What made you guys get into the Maremas?
Just for the guardian of the sheep, keeping eagles away from the sheep and foxes was just a way. That was one of the things that we thought would just help us a bit. We've got 2,500, or not 2,500 acres in one block, but we've got the home block here is 1,800 acres, and they will go around most of that, but they sort of hang around more the lambing paddocks, and if they hear a fox around, the Marimas we've got, they're not killer dogs. They'll just chase the fox away, and if there's a big eagle flying around, you'll see the dog just head flat out across the paddock and say, what the hell's she doing? And then stop and look up, and she won't let the eagle land, and the eagle will just move on. So
and crows, she's pretty good with the
and the crows, often though, if the ewe is down, the crows will be attacking, or want to attack the ewe, but the old marima will be there trying to keep the crows off net. But they're not foolproof, but they are worth having.
Sounds like a pretty smart dog.
Yeah. How long have you guys had them on your property for?
This is the fifth or sixth one. I
think we've had them for quite a few years. I reckon. The late 80s. Yes, early 90s. Yeah, and that. So we've had them, and we've always had bitches, and we've had them desexed. We mainly run bitches, and we once they've had 1 or 2 litters, we get them desexed.
This is the Kelpies.
This is the Kelpies, but the Marimas, we've all had them desexed and that.
And we buy them. We don't breed ourselves. Marimas.
And obviously we've mentioned our Kelpies there, mate. Have you got a particular style of Kelpie you like?
Yeah, style. Yeah, no, the type of Kelpie I like is an all round dog, but I like a little bit of style out in the paddock. But it's very hard to keep that style because we've only got small paddocks. Our biggest paddock's 18 hectares, and that so it tends to be more. They don't get a lot of chance to go right out wide. They'll go out and run around the fence and fence, But my style of mustering, if I go out to a paddock, I just stop at the gate and send one dog one way and the other dog the other way. One on the go by and one on the over, and just wait at the gate, and they'll just go around and just bring the sheep to the gate for me. So there's very, very little, travelling in vehicles and that. And we do all our stock work with dogs, not with utes. We don't chase sheep with utes or motorbikes, and that tends to make the sheep a lot quieter. If they don't see a dog out on the ground, well, the sheep will just sort of be very relaxed. And the same when we're going around, we still go around our ewes and lambs, and our ewes are very quiet because if they see a dog out in the paddock, they know they've got a mob up. If they don't see a dog, they say, "Oh, it's a ute. That's not a threat to us." That's just another way of our management.
But we like a team, though. We mostly have most of the dogs will do both paddock work and yard, but there's a couple that would much prefer just doing yard work and pushing up in the shed and things like that. They will muster, but it's not their favourite job. So we try to breed our dogs to be able to do both. They don't. They may not be brilliant at both. Some are better out in the paddock than others, but they have to do both jobs. That's what they're there for. It's in this team. So yeah.
You were just saying about our style of dog. All our dogs are very strong head. They always have been, and they're very strong heading dogs. There's minuses and pluses in that, but I think the pluses outride the minuses, being good heading dogs.
And they're thinking dogs. That's what we like. We like them to think. If they're confronted with an issue wherever they are, they've got to work it out quite often, particularly if they can't hear you giving the instruction. They've got to work it out. And we, as Rex said earlier, we're very flat here, but every now and then we have a little hill out in the paddock, or we grow a lot of windbreaks and trees, and so the sheep get involved in that, get caught up in that, and so they've got to work it out. Are there some of the sheep still caught up in the plantation, or are they over the hill? And so, they've got to be able to make sure they do a clean muster for us. And when we travel them from our other property back to the main property for shearing, or if we're weaning, they've got to travel, 5 k's or something?
5 k's.
And it's through water courses and a lot of tea tree bushes. And the old ewes are a bit cunning, particularly if they've just had their lambs weaned off them, and so they'll try and hide in the tea tree. But the dogs are very clever. We might have 2 or 3 dogs working behind, and one going up to the head to block the head, and but the ones behind say, "Ha, ha, ha, we saw you go and hide under that behind that. Come on, out you come." So very rarely do we have a sheep left behind. But, so they have to think through that, and particularly in the winter when there's so much water around, and the old girls really hate going through the water courses. So the dogs will just keep pushing them. A lot of our dogs don't bark, so they just have to do it with their presence. So yes, it's very interesting. If you're sitting on behind them, I don't anymore, but used to sit behind on a four-wheeler. Rex would be in the ute with the heaters on and the radio on, and I'd be out there, and down would come the rain, and he wouldn't say to me, "Oh, I'll take over." No. Once you're wet, you might as well keep going.
And you mentioned the style there and your type of dogs. Was there a most influential dog to yourself that you've owned?
Yeah, a lot of people say, name my best dog. Well, I've had, 4 or 5 really good dogs, and they've always one's been a little bit better at something than the other dog, but they've been all very good all-round dogs, and that's what I look for, and that. But I like the intelligent dogs. The dogs can work it out for themselves, and my dogs at home here, when I'm mustering, I don't say much to them. I just sort of drive where they want to go, and they go through that gate. They know they've got to go, stop them from going a different way. And there's very little commands. And when you get to a trial ground, you command them all the time. They say, "What the bloody hell are you doing? You don't tell me anything at home. You come in, you try and tell me how to work." But you got to. The dog's got to have a high IQ as far as I'm concerned.
Mm.
If you could have sorry,
Rex
Kay.
is a bit shy about speaking about his achievements and his good dogs, but one thing that we had our foundation bitch was named Nakuma Gabrielle, and we're very grateful to Lyndon for selling her to us, and she won the Australian Yard Dog Championship for Rex at Bourndoo many years ago. But she was a beautiful bitch. She didn't ever bark at all, and if you try to get her to bark, she'd go, "Ugh," and that would be her bark. And she bred beautiful puppies, but we didn't breed from her until she was reasonably old, wasn't she? And so she only had a couple of litters, and then we actually, Kingsley and McCate that we had bought from Andrew, she won many trials as well. And then Rex had a lovely dog, this one I was telling you about, nobody wanted, and his name was Washpool Lee. He won lots of trials as well. And he was a beautiful paddock dog. And he was from a bitch that we bought from Neil and Helen McDonald.
Sherwood April.
Yes. And she was a very big, tall dog. And then further down the track, we had, he's had Washpool Turbo, who won the state championship, and Washpool Tom, that most people know. He was our character dog. He died just recently, and it's 12 years old, and worked right up until probably the last 6 months of his life. And Washpool Kiri, she's still working. She's 12. She'll be trialling over the weekend. And Turbo's full sister, Elsie, who hates yard work, absolutely hates yard work. But she's won the best type Kelpie at the National Kelpie Trial twice.
Wow.
It's a beautiful paddock dog, and very quiet. She doesn't bark either, does she? No, except in the kennel when there's food around.
She never ever barks. I've never heard her bark. As soon as I take the other dogs out, Kay reckons she starts barking, but I still don't believe
it. And we're going to get into it a little bit later, but we know how much dedication you guys have put into traveling around the whole country over the last 30 to 40 years. Is there a dog that somebody else has owned that you wish you had in your pack?
Old Jim Lucy had a couple of very good dogs, like I still admire old Jim, like I just can't think. Minute was one of them. I just can't think. But he had a couple of magic dogs. You know, they were. You had to see those dogs to see how good they were. And then Chris Stapleton's had a couple of very good dogs, but you know they were exceptional dogs, and they were Jim's dogs and Chris's dogs were yes some of the best dogs I've ever seen.
Yeah. What was it? What was the appeal to those particular dogs for yourself?
Yeah, all round ability and their ease of working, and the control they had on. The control they had, the handlers had on, but the dog's IQ and so forth. They were very good, and outside and inside. Yes,
yeah. A little bit earlier, you mentioned that you love having a dog that heads well. We said there's positives and negatives. What are some of the negatives that you've come across?
Yeah, too strong and heading. They're quite hard to train because they're wanting to get to the head all the time. I find that is one of the problems with that they are that keen to get to the head that they are tried. And to pull them back off the head or to get them into a driving situation. You'll get that when they get older. When they're young, they're that strong heading, and it's just too much for a lot of people. But how I get away with it is, once you've got the sheep in the mob where you just drive forward and the dogs will stay behind them, bringing them to you. But that's...
Can be frustrating at times, all right?
Story about the first little dog that purebred we had, Franny, and only just started trialing, and I went to the gate to open the gate as we brought to go into the first race, and of course she just wanted to bring the sheep to me, so here I was in the corner. She wouldn't come up and clear the gate or anything like that. She just thought, I've got to take these sheep to Kay. And I couldn't open the gate. I couldn't do anything. And I said to the judge, what shall I do? He said, push them out of the way or give it away. So I nearly cried because that was my very first trial, and I couldn't do anything except get the sheep into the pen. And I thought to myself from that day on, when we started training, having training school, one of the things I used to say to the young trialers, the new trialers, is set yourself a goal, and your first goal is get the sheep into the first pen. And if you've done that, great. The next goal is get them up the race. Don't worry about, I've got to finish the trial. Set yourself a goal until you eventually will finish the course. It's not about a time trial when you're first learning. It's set those goals and do it well. And most of the ones that we've watched that have come to our schools and gone on to trialling have set those goals, and they now do very well in the trial game. And and I still say to them, set a goal. Don't worry about whether you finish the first couple of times. That's not what it's about. It's about doing the trialling well. And if you learn to do it well, then the rest will all fall into place.
Climb the hills on the way up to the mountain, you reckon?
What was that?
Climb the hills on the way up the mountain. One hill at a time.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes. Don't think that you're going to knock the top trialers off straight away, because it won't happen. And the other bit of advice we used to tell them was or and some still come back to have private lessons with Rex. Um, when you're at a trial, don't just stick with your friends who are in that same beginner class or the nursery class or the encouraged class. Go and talk to the top trialers. Most of them are very willing to share their knowledge. But if you just go talk to your friends and go home after you've finished, you won't learn anything. Go and watch how wide do they open their gates, where do they stand, when do they speak to their dogs, and all of those sorts of things. And I think some of them have taken our advice anyway.
I think that's a key part of that advice is to go and talk to the other people, because you're exactly right. That's where you learn.
It is where you learn, and talk to them. I mean, the experienced trialers particularly like to speak with new trialers because they might not tell their really secret things. That, but certainly probably wouldn't with their competitors. But they do like to talk to, and we do, and I do still, like to talk to new trialers and be encouraging, and that's what we should do.
Just getting back to heading dogs. If you've got a heading dog, you'll get any job done. A dog doesn't get head. He never trains or educates them of a sheep and that. So that's just my one thing on strong heading dogs. You'll always get a job done. Anyhow, we waylaid off that.
No, that's okay. Are you guys still breeding a few pups?
I've just bred one litter just recently, and kept one pup out of that, and I'll breed one more litter out of Washpool Mini. I'll put her to Kelvale Gus, and that'll be the finish. Yes, and I think that'll nearly see me out, and that. So unless somebody's got a real good border collie they want to give me or something like that, yeah.
Border collie, what's happening there?
Oh, I just think I might finish up in a border collie one day. I started off with them, so I might finish up. So I'd like to try a collie, but yeah, it's just one of those things.
Where would you go for a collie, mate?
Sorry?
Where do you think you would go for a collie? Is there a particular line of collies around that you appeals to yourself?
Sure. Oh yes. Green Valley. What's his name?
Yeah. Well, we.
I don't know who you're talking about now.
Judged at the Royal Perth Show, and he had to judge yard and do demos, and talk about the demos and so on. And then in the evening they would do an arena trial. Yeah. And one of the dogs, and I'm not sure, I don't think he would mind if we mentioned his name. What's his name? Anyway, it doesn't matter. His dog's name was Bluey. And during the
Grant Cook from West Australia.
Yes. And during the afternoon, he did the yard trial, and there were people, and I was doing the commentating, and there were people standing behind or sitting behind me with their family, and these kids were so enthralled with Bluey because Bluey was blue, and Bluey reminded them of Bluey, the cartoon character, you see. Yeah. So, they say, come on, Bluey, come on, get it done. And so when the arena trial came on, who's sitting behind me but this family? And they were going home after the yard trial, and they decided to stay to watch Bluey run in the arena that evening. And so I'm trying to commentate, and all of these kids behind me, I say, come on, Bluey. So I actually had to say, Now, when they get to the obstacle, you've got to all be very quiet until they go through the obstacle. And once they've gone through the obstacle, then you can give a big cheer. Well, I mean, this is on the arena, the main arena of the Perth show. So there are thousands of people there, and these kids behind me, and they could hear them over the mic. Well, they were so excited when Bluey got all the sheep through the course and over the bridge and into the pen, and Bluey won. Well, these children and the people were enthralled by Bluey. So Bluey had a cult following, and Grant then went on to represent Western Australia in the Supremes in Victoria last year in the 3 sheep trolley against New Zealand. And so I said to Rex one day, "Oh, I'd love one of Bluey's pups," but we haven't even spoken to Grant. So anyway, that's name dropping.
But he's one of the or she, Bluey's a she. She is one of the nicest collies I've seen working and so forth, and she does it, and she's very handy in the yards also. So yeah, but that's where that little bit came from. But anyhow, yeah. Right.
Bluey.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't have to call it Bluey then. I hope it's a blue one. But I mean, we haven't even asked him. We get on the phone tomorrow.
So you guys have had mostly bitches in your camp. That's correct, yes?
Yes, most definitely.
So when you were when you're breeding them, you're obviously looking for outside sires 90% of the time. What are you looking for? Like, what does that sire need to tick before you guys choose to put it to one of your bitches?
Got to be very, very biddable, and the dog shows a lot of relaxation on the trial ground, off the trial ground, and a bit of distance. You know, not up them all the time, or a bit of distance.
Not a lot of bark.
And not a lot of bark, and just a bark on command. And I'm pretty very particular what we've put our dogs to and so forth, but bitches and that. But there's a dog here in South Australia at present, Kelvale, Gus. He's a very nice dog, and he's got all those attributes and so forth. But we have sent bitches far away, and we've never had much trouble getting them in pups. So we've always had to have a sort of look for a local dog, and but that's the way we've gone about it, and it's worked.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, how do you go about picking a pup for yourself?
We once the pups get moving around, we usually have them where we can see them a lot of the time. From the time they're 6 weeks old, we can nearly tell the paddock dogs, the rough dogs, and the intermediate dogs, and that. So if I'm looking for a nice paddocky dog, that'll be the pup that's not in the scruff of the fighting all the time. And then if you're looking for a yardie dog, well, that's the pup in the middle having the scruff all the time. That's I like the pup that gets out and has a bit of a look and a bit of a think about it before he goes in and has the scruff there. But it's always it's always worked what we've I've never kept a dud pup yet. All the pups we've kept and trained, they've all come on to be very good dogs and that. And with all the pups dogs we've bred, we've only ever had about 2 or 3 returns, and I've always kept them myself, and they've gone on, and I've won trials with them and that. So all dogs don't suit all people, and some dogs a person gets so for them, it just doesn't suit them. Well, their lifestyle or what they do with and that. And the first thing I do if I get a return dog, I bring it home and I change its name straight away, and that. And start it off as a pup. and away it goes. I mean, just click the right buttons and away it goes.
Like
that we'd rather have them return to us than them on-sell them. I mean, I think sometimes people probably do on-sell, but we would rather have them come back to us, and we always
Replace them.
Either replacement or full money back, and so we've never really had any issues with selling our puppies. We haven't we haven't, I don't believe we've advertised them ever. There's always a client list, and that's the reason we bred this last litter, was that there were people who have been clients for many years who really wanted another pup. So we had enough for nearly 2 litters, and she only had 4 pups. And so there are some sad clients. So we think now we'll have another litter. And but we have to at some stage say no more, because I find it very difficult with the puppies. They're all right up until they're about 3 weeks old, and then they scratch me, and then I get into trouble. So Rex has to do the rest of the work with them. But it's been just such a wonderful journey for us, with lots and lots of adventures, and we want to have more adventures, but it'll probably be with our old dogs now. This new little fellow that's there, and that will be interesting. He wants to sit up on my knee all the time, or lick me, or whatever, and but he scratches. So I ended up on our way home from wherever we came from, having scratches from him. So that's it. He's telling me I'm talking too much.
No, that's okay. And being around so many dogs for so long around the country, what advice would you give to someone that wanted to purchase their first dog or pup?
Go to a reputable breeder and make sure it's well bred
and guaranteed.
But go to a reputable breeder and so forth. Whenever you go and buy, if you go and buy a car now, you don't go and buy one off a second-hand car dealer and so forth. And do it properly, and pay the money, and get it done. And there's plenty of excellent training schools around, and nowadays, when we started off, like Neil and Helen McDonald were the only ones doing schools, and we've done many schools ourselves, and just do it properly. That's all you've got to do. Yep, that's it.
And while you're touching, sorry.
And common sense goes a long way with a dog, and that treat it as a human. It's don't rush them. We never ever rush our dogs. We let them take their time and move on the training steps. We've got 10 training steps, and just follow those steps. And even if you think they're advanced, don't go there. Just keep going along, and put a very good foundation into them, and you'll be rewarded with it.
The other thing we do with our pups when we sell them, we always send out a program of what to do with the training of your puppy. Once it reaches this age, then try this and whatever. So there's a 2-page list that we send, and their feeding regime, any problems, we're always here for them to get back to us. So yes, it's if you're going to be in the breeding side of purebreds for work, you've got to be prepared to help your clients. So that's our policy, and we've sold dogs overseas. we went over to
Holland.
and ran a school over there with the shepherds, and they bought dogs there from us as well. And even through that, it's exactly the same, whether it's with the shepherd who just works their sheep in large pasture parks, and then they shed them at night. So these dogs have to be able to bring sheep through a mob of cattle and shed them for the night, then take them out the next morning. So it was all very interesting, and they do little yard, only very small yard work, but they do a little bit of yard work. So with that, they were given a list of, when your dog gets to this stage, then, these are the next stages to go through. Don't expect them to be, how many would they have in their mobs? A couple of hundred?
Yeah.
A couple of hundred ewes, probably. Don't expect your young dog to be able to handle that, bring them through the cattle or people riding their bikes and all of these sorts of things that are happening where they have their sheep. And don't expect the young dog to be able to do that right from the start. So, yeah, it's all good. It's lovely.
I'll have to sit down with you one day, mate, and go through all 10 of those steps with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. A couple of cartons of beer.
I'm sure we can do that, mate. I know you don't mind your Carlton, so we can work something, like Coopers, we can work something out.
Not for me.
So you guys mentioned earlier today, you've been to every NKF for the last 30 years, is that correct?
And Australian Yard Dog, yes, that's correct.
So
Yes,
the trialling's taken you all over the country then?
Oh, they have, and met some, seen some wonderful country, wonderful people, and yard setups and courses and that, and it's been a fantastic journey to meet all the people, see all the different dogs, and see all different yard setups and outside courses and that. So no, it's been fantastic. Just wish it could go for another 30 years, but I don't think it will.
We've been very much involved in the admin side of the dog trialling as well, both in state and Australian. So that also has been a wonderful experience for us, and yes, it could be hard work, but it's been fantastic. Really, we've been very privileged and blessed. Yes.
So the majority of your trialing is obviously yard, and utility trialing.
Yes, and I do still do some 3 sheep trial. I do a 3 sheep trial at Wentworth and at Barmera, where they hold special trial.
The Trans-Tasman.
Trans-Tasman trial. I love those Trans-Tasman trials and so forth. They're great, and it's great for the Kelpies handle that very well, and that it's totally different, but it's good.
So
have you got a favourite trial?
Pardon?
Sorry,
did I cut you off there, Kay?
Well, the Trans-Tasman, if you don't know what it is a combination of New Zealand rules and Australian rules. So there's the New Zealand rules are driving. There's a lot of driving, and so 2 of the obstacles are with driving, and 2 of the obstacles with the Australian are the normal 3 sheep rules. So it's very interesting and quite a challenge. And so Rex only did it once, and then that hooked him. So it went to often, but there's not many Trans-Tasman courses set up.
Yeah. And
right.
do you guys have a favourite trial to participate in?
My favourite trial would have to be Henty. Henty is a great trial, and that we don't go any more now because there's a lot of walking and it's hard to get in there, and and accommodation, all that sort of stuff. But that is a great trial. 3 sheep trial on one side and the yard trial on the other, and course is very well set up. Big crowds, good sheep. Yeah, no, great, magnificent setup.
Looking forward to rolling up and kicking my swag out in a few weeks, to be honest.
Oh, you'll enjoy it. It's a great trial. And of course, Lucendale's is the yard setup. You know, is a fantastic trial. Permanent yards, 2 courses, and that's.
What is it about trialing that has you guys hooked?
Sorry, Laura.
What is it about trialing that has you guys hooked?
Well, just being competitive with animals and achieving results just through training and dedication, and meeting other people and seeing other dogs and seeing, and that's but it is a great sport, and you've only got yourself to blame. You can't blame anybody else. You know, you run into some different sheep and different judges and so forth. The judges are there to do a job, and they do their job, and we can't complain about them. But the working different styles of sheep. You know, we went up to Ningen and that, and what were they?
Dorpers.
Dorpers, long-tailed Dorpers. You know, and so never.
Interesting, weren't they?
They were.
We and working Dorpers, I thought they worked very well, but it was quite strange to go and for the dogs to go out and see these long-tailed sheep running around and that, but it was good. But talk about trial grounds. West Wyalong is another great trial, and that, but the sheep there are always very, very difficult, and it's a bit strange because the sheep seem, I'm not sure. My dogs attack those sheep like they're rams, and the sheep have a different scent for some reason. Rather, you'll go to a trial ground somewhere and the sheep will smell quite different to what I call normal sheep, our sheep, and that brings a fair bit of aggro out in some dogs, and they just don't handle it, and that. So, but it's just the different sheep you come across. But even the sheep we had at not Armidale, up in the mountains this year. Where were we?
Mansfield,
yeah. Those what hill sheep, they run them out the hills and so forth. And that's our dogs don't quite work them out because our sheep are so easy handled, and they go there and they head their sheep, and the sheep still keep running. So, but yeah.
I think it's because our sheep have been broken in from lambs, you see, so
and they get worked off.
They're quiet. Even the old rams don't attack the dogs, so they say, "Oh, here's the Kelpies, we're off. There's the gate."
But no, it's a great sport.
It is, mate. And if you could make any change to trialing, what would it be?
You're asking me what my pet hates. Yeah, trialing is very good, but I still can never ever see why you got to use a balk gate in a drafting race. Like, I mean, you don't use one in the farm, so they might as well have a hurdle out in the paddock. Get the sheep up the hurdle. So it's
I love it.
whatever and so forth. We're supposed to be stockmen, and that doesn't, having a balk gate, that doesn't. There's no stockmanship in that whatsoever. That's
so there you go.
Yeah, so there we are. So that'll bring plenty of comments. Yeah, New South Wales on the phone already, I reckon. Yeah, that's and that. So, but anyhow, no. The yard setups we get nowadays are very good. They've improved a lot in the last 8 or 10 years. Used to go some trials and they'd have they'd make a difficult course. The sheep will work the course out, and the judges work the course out. You don't have to have a tough course and that, but and the competitors have got to get through it. And the other thing that I'm a little bit against is just some trials. You know, they've only got 4 or 5 minutes to do the trial, and you know, I mean, that's a speed trial. You know, and there's not. That's a crash bang. It's not really a stockman's trial as far as I'm concerned. And when you get a bit older, you can't be racing around doing what the young ones are doing and so forth. But jumping fences and so forth. But it's all good. It's all good, and we're part of it. And we enjoy it.
Have you got a most memorable moment?
Oh yes, yeah. 58 years ago.
Ah, well played, sir.
That's a good one. That's classy.
I'm very lucky. I've had quite a lot of enjoyable moments in my life and so forth. It's getting married, winning the Miracle Mile, winning the Australian Yard Dog Championship, birth of my 2 daughters. Yeah, there's lots of them. That's yes, yeah, and that's
beautiful, man.
Yeah.
And just before we do wrap up on trialing, there, one thing I did want to mention was we've had a few people on from that South Victoria and Southern Australia, and your name comes up a lot, mate. Both of you, you've been a fantastic mentor for people down there, and I didn't want you to take that lightly either. Like, I just want to make sure that was actually highlighted for you guys tonight. That you got your name always comes up, and there's a lot of people that look up to you guys for the time and effort you've put into nurturing trialers along your 35 years, I think, in the sport. So I know I can't do it, but I'd love to give you a pat on the back. But I'll do it next time I see you.
Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you very much, Dan. We've been very fortunate to have some very good young ones to come through the wash pool here. We've had Freddie Rains has been through here, Travis Ware, and that they've all started off here. Dave and Sarah and we've had some very good people, and a lot of other people that haven't hit the highlights, but they've done extremely well, and it gives us great honour that we've passed our knowledge on, because when we started trialling, you couldn't, they wouldn't even tell you when you're ready to go on the trial ground. It was very different in those days, and it's come a long way, and we've shared our knowledge, and we love doing it.
Yeah, the other thing about that is that it isn't only, we don't actually only have our training schools for people who want to trial. It's we've had many farmers and who have sent their stockmen along for dog training, and even the people that have bought their dogs from us who only want them for their own use. They come to those schools, and we feel so privileged to have them come, but to also know that they've gained from what we have actually taught them. And so for several years we would have schools, but we'd have to turn people away because there was too many to be able to to fit them all in, and for Rex to give them time. And he'd be exhausted if we had a 2 or 3 day training school. And so at lunchtime, I'd give him his lunch, and he'd have to head off and have a sleep in the car, or the ute. And I'd talk to them about dog health and feeding and bringing up your puppy and all of those sorts of things, just to give him time out, but also to pass on the importance of good dog health, making sure they have their vaccinations and their worms, and good feeding, and how to feed your dogs, and
enduro.
Well, that I'm sure that that in Europe would be top of the list. So I think that apart from just teaching people how to work their dogs, they've also got to learn about how to look after their dogs. And I was on the advisory committee when they were changing the dog and cat laws in South Australia, and there were 3 of us that had working dogs that were invited to be on it. And if we hadn't been there, our laws would be impossible for us to follow as owners of working dogs, because most of them had absolutely no idea about a working dog, a livestock working dog, and what their requirements were. And so,
Right.
you've got to think about all of that, and their caging or
Housing.
pardon?
Housing.
Their housing. So anyway, that was my role. I did hop in and give a hand at times and got flattened by sheep, so I was banned from. So so that was it. I do the
Without people like you, honestly, the sport and the industry dies without people like you guys passing on your knowledge. So thank you. I wish I'd gotten to a school, but South Australia is a long way away.
So speaking of that knowledge, like, what advice would you guys give to someone that wanted to pursue a career in the livestock industry?
Go for it. It's great. It's when you're working livestock, it's not a job. It's just a way of life. And you just go for it, because there's plenty of avenues to, and the demand for good stockmen is
enormous.
Enormous. And getting people to work in the rural industry, the conditions nowadays are very good. A lot of people run it down, but the conditions are very good, and most employers are very good. And if you've got an understanding of dogs and livestock, you go a long way, and you'll have a very happy life and a happy wife.
You nailed it, mate. He's pretty smooth there, Kay. Very smooth.
Yeah.
Is there someone you guys would like to hear us sit down and have a chat with on Dog Talk?
Yeah. Well, been on Richard Puddicombe. He's a character.
Not yet.
Not yet. No. Put be worth getting on, because he was very much into the dog trialing world and dogs and so forth. And he's an exceptional stockman. Horses, cattle, and so forth. And I reckon he would be a good one. Yes. And
I thought Bill Midden from
America.
Yeah. Bill comes out to the National Kelpie Trial.
Well, Laura met Bill.
Did you meet Bill?
Yeah,
well,
he met Mansfield.
Interesting, because he breeds Australian Kelpies. Very interesting life, and his wife Janice is a vet. So they have a very interesting life in America. I'm not sure whether you would interview somebody who's from not. Bill is an expat Australian, so so I would think that a lot of people would find him an interesting person to be interviewed.
Well, it's in
actually reached out to him today, so we'll see how we go.
What's that?
I actually reached out to Bill today, so we'll see how we go.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, so that would be great. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we actually changed up the way we. Oh, sorry, I cut you off there.
I was just going to say, about you meet trialing friends and so forth. Look, we had a lot to do with Jim and Jan Luce when they were trialing, and they taught us a lot and so forth. And also our great friends in trial, and Kevin and Kay Howe, you know, like, I mean, we've been going to championships with them for years, and the friendships we struck there, and the dog talk we have, and that is really tremendous. And there's lots of other people around like that, but there's just a couple of names that, you know, are worth mentioning. And you know, when Ruth and Pud were trialing, you know, we had great, fantastic times with those people, and good dog talk, good sense, and yeah,
And a few drinks.
and a few drinks.
Everyone gets thirsty, right?
Yes, you got a drink.
You got a drink. We actually, our website's under a bit of construction today, so the way we normally take questions changed today, so that become a bit of an issue. So hence the questions not rolling in today. However, thank you for your time today and for being on. There's a bag of Enduro coming your way. Appreciate your time and effort. So Enduro, we're gonna spot you a bag or two of Enduro, and we'll flick that off to you.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank
that.
you.
Much appreciated, Daniel, and that, and
Laura.
and Laura. No, it's been quite exciting when you asked us to go on and so forth, to just let other people's, you know a little bit about our lives and where we come from and what we've done, and yeah, and that. So it's great times.
Laura's probably not going to let you get off that easy, Rex.
No, one last question. Would you guys rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks?
Yeah.
I'll take the 20 horses the size of ducks.
Why is that?
Why is that? Because I can handle them. I don't know whether I can handle ducks.
You throw little harnesses on them and get them going.
You're dead right there. Yes. When we had the horses in Ballarat and so forth, I trained a lot of colts. I had a lot of success with colts, young colts and that, and I could teach them to do quite a few tricks and that. And then girls had a little Shetland pony and so forth, and I could point my finger at his head and say die, and he'd lie down, and the poor girls would get in a panic because they thought I'd shot him and so forth. But training dogs and horses, you can train horses to do a lot of things in simple steps, and same with dogs. You've got to take a step. See, I'll take the horses, not the ducks, dear. Yeah.
How about you, Kay?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I was okay as the strapper.
No.
Oh.
The ducks are horses.
No, I'm just explaining. Okay as the strapper, but no good as riding horses or anything. I spent more time on the ground, even though Rex tried to teach me. I'll have the ducks. I'll have
the duck. Maybe when you finish with him, you can make one of those lumpy pillows that Rex used to have. Just with duck feathers instead of cash.
With the cash.
Sorry?
I'll explain to you later.
Guys, thank you very much for your time tonight. Everybody that's listening, will jump on live and listen, and everyone listening back, thank you very much for your time. And please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning will be a sad one for all of us.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Have a Coopers.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.